which the spawn of one of Chris's earlier films is debuting next door, Twilight, from the same studio, and there's hardly a bigger gap between that kind of film and the intimacy of a film like this, and I'm sure...
A lot of discrimination in both films. Vampires are disgusted.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, and I'm sure it was a great inspiration in the making of this film as well. It just seems sort of, it is really striking, and funny enough, we have the head of the studio just standing outside the theater between A Better Life and the Twilight screening. It's sort of interesting.
Guess where he is.
He's here in spirit. Well, I really have to thank you both, and you especially, Chris, for undertaking such a beautiful story that is such an unusual thing, such an unusual story for us to get to experience, because for so many of us who live here in Los Angeles, this is a reality that we are deeply distanced from, and yet we somehow feel it, you know, like at the end of your fingertips, and you wonder about it. So I really have to ask, kind of, what made you want to tell this story? It's not something that's inspired by your own gardener, I presume. It's based on a story, of course.
It's based on, well, of course, it bears some similarities to the bicycle thieves, but it was actually born of a story that happened 25 years ago. For me, it was the best script that I'd ever read. But also, and also my grandma is Mexican. She was an immigrant. My grandfather was a refugee from Nazi Germany, and I was the first part of the first generation of my family not to speak Spanish. So it was going to be an excuse for me to learn a bit more about my culture, but also to learn more about my city, because you're right, I did have this sense of something being out there, east of where all the white people were. And, you know, my experience of East Los Angeles has been, you know, people would say, oh, you got to go to the Serenata de Garibaldi. It's really great. Be careful when you get out of your car. You know, Los Angeles is a horizontal city. I grew up in a vertical city, New York, where we're living on top of one another, and you sort of have to get to know your neighbor. Here, it's much easier to self-segregate. And for the structure of the city, the geography of the city, even the way the roads are built to keep people apart. And people would rather not ask.
And the lack of public transportation to take you from one part of the city to another?
Yes. You can watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit to find out about how public transport was destroyed. We're kept apart, and also I think that people who live in West Los Angeles don't necessarily want to ask certain questions. In part out of delicacy, you know, because you don't really want to ask, you know, do you happen to be documented or not? But the story originated with Paul Witt, who's one of our producers, was the producer of Three Kings and Dead Poet Society. A friend of his, his gardener had his truck stolen, and the friend said, well, let's go to the police. And the gardener said, you don't understand, I can't go to the police. And he realized that the man had no papers, and he realized that he didn't know anything about him at all. So this is the other side of the city. And by the way, the people in that part of the city think they're living in Los Angeles too. And there's this strange place, West LA, where people go to work occasionally, but they feel blocked from.
Demián, you have a thriving stage career and film career in Mexico, and recently moved to this country and started doing work in Hollywood and the American movie and television world. It's interesting, and having spoken to you a little bit, I can see how very distant you are from the character you play, and it's such a beautiful performance. It's so moving. did you have any sort of thoughts about wanting to play a character that could possibly play into a stereotype that we have of Mexican immigrants, albeit one that really cracks through the sort of the little that mainstream society knows about undocumented workers and shows him to be a real person. But still, for you to take on that role, did you have any second thoughts about doing that, about portraying that?
No, I think we actors are always in search of this type of characters, bigger than life. We're looking for our own Hamlet, King Lear, and this character has those dimensions. I'm interested in getting different roles, trying to jump from one place to another as much as I can, and having done Fidel Castro in Steven Soderbergh's Che.
By the way, Laura Bickford says hello. I ran into her and told her that we met the same day on Monday when we met.
Yeah, oh, he's great. And I remember I was in Ibiza as part of the jury for the film festival in Ibiza, and I got a call at 5 in the morning, and they told me Steven Soderbergh wants you to play Fidel Castro. Then I ran to the mirror. I just couldn't see why. And I have this beard already, kind of long. I always do that when I'm not working. I let everything grow. So it's a lot easier to take it off than with some fake mustaches or wigs or whatever. And I remember having this meeting with Mary Renew, Che's casting director, and she was looking at me like, can you stay 5 minutes so I can put you on tape? So, I started looking at this part of my face. It looks a little bit like Fidel Castro's eyes. But then I realized that I needed at least some, weight on. And I went up for about 25 pounds or something like that to play Fidel Castro. And then Fidel Castro is this character, unlike Carlos Galindo, who wants to make sure that you listen when he talks, and wants to make sure that you know that he exists. Unlike Carlos Galindo, who wants to make sure that he transits through life in a rather invisible kind of way. So those two characters for me are crucial in my career because not only for what they mean, but also because for me as an actor is a wonderful chance to stretch whatever capacities I might have.
That's a really great answer. Well, I do wonder, how do you relate to the world of undocumented immigrants and to all the gardeners you see when you are walking around LA today? I mean,
growing up in Mexico, as you very well said before, I grew up in the theater with my parents, and my brothers are both actors, and then I remember being the only one in the family that I could never stand still, and I would be outside playing soccer all day long. And then I decided to move to New York when I was 22 because I wanted to learn English, and I wanted to give myself a break and give my actor other kind of experiences in life. And that's when I became an illegal immigrant, because even though I didn't have to cross any river or any desert or risk my life in any way, form, or shape, because I had the chance, the blessing of having a passport and a tourist visa, I did not have a permit to work, to be able to work in the United States. So, but I wanted to do that because I wanted to give myself that chance to do something other than being an actor. and then I got my first job